You're walking. Everything is fine. You've got your phone, your bag, and you're just going about your day. And then, one tiny moment. Your shoe squeaks, loudly, in a room full of people. You freeze. A spotlight appears above you, and suddenly it feels like every single person in that room just looked up. In your imagination, 100 pairs of eyes are locked onto you, judging, watching, whispering. Your brain goes into full panic mode, heart racing, replaying that squeak over and over and over. You picture the whole room turned toward you, everyone whispering, everyone pointing, everyone judging your existence. But here's the thing, and this is really important, that's not what actually happened. In reality, you walked to your seat. Nobody cared. Nobody even looked. But you couldn't stop thinking about it, replaying it, cringing again and again and again. Because from where you were standing, that tiny moment felt enormous. But from everyone else's seat, it barely registered. This feeling, this sense that everyone is watching and judging your every move, has a name. It's called the spotlight effect. The spotlight effect is the feeling that a bright light is shining directly on you, making you visible to every single person around you. In your head, all eyes on you. In reality, almost nobody is looking. That gap between what you feel and what is real, that's the spotlight effect. Your mind zooms in on yourself like a magnifying glass. And when you feel magnified, you assume everyone else sees that same huge version of you. The spotlight effect is simply this. We consistently and dramatically overestimate how much other people notice us. Psychologists have studied this, and the results were clear. People think they're being noticed far, far more than they actually are. You imagine the person standing next to you can see your spotlight, but they're too busy standing under their own. Walking down the street, you imagine every window has eyes. Every person is a potential audience member in your personal drama. Reality, people walk past you looking at their phones, their coffee, their own thoughts. You're invisible to almost everyone. When you look in the mirror, you see a dramatic, enlarged, spotlit version of yourself, but you're the only one with that magnifying glass. Standing up to speak, you feel 1,000 eyes on you, judging your posture, your voice, every single word. Reality, one person is asleep, one is checking their watch, one is thinking about dinner. You were never the main event. Something starts to click. If the spotlight isn't as real as it feels, then what is actually going on inside your brain? Here's the pattern. You feel enormous in your own head, while everyone else is quietly absorbed in their own world. What if the spotlight that's been following you around was never really there? Walking into class late, your heart pounds. The door creaks. You imagine everyone's head turning toward you. You slide into your seat and shrink down low. The imagined whispers feel absolutely deafening. You post something online and immediately stare at it, heart rate rising, waiting for the judgment to arrive. Your brain conjures an entire audience of critics, all gathered around your post with sharp eyes and strong opinions. Reality, 2 likes. Nobody else noticed, but you're still sweating over it anyway. You try on a new outfit. You love it in the store. But now, standing in front of the mirror, you're not so sure. Walking outside, you imagine strangers stopping to stare, pointing, laughing at your bold choice. Reality, they walk by without blinking. They're thinking about their own day. Your outfit is a complete non-event. You're in the middle of a presentation, and the wrong word falls out of your mouth. You completely freeze. You imagine everyone writing your mistake down in their notebooks. Forensic attention, permanent record of your fumble. Reality, one person is doodling, one is checking their watch, one is counting ceiling tiles. Your stumble is already forgotten. Eating alone at a cafeteria table, you scan the room nervously, convinced everyone can see you sitting there by yourself. But everyone else is deep in their own conversations, their own problems, their own lunch. You're not even a footnote. You send a text and immediately regret the wording. Was that weird? Did I sound weird? Oh no, oh no. You spend the next 10 minutes imagining the recipient reading it with furrowed brows and a very confused, judging expression. Reality, they glanced at it, sent a thumbs up, put the phone down, and moved on. The whole thing took 4 seconds. You knock over your coffee at a cafe. Accident, completely normal accident, but you freeze like you've committed a crime. In your mind, the entire cafe turns in slow motion. Phones rise. Everyone films. You are the breaking news. Reality, the barista wiped it up with a cloth. One person glanced for 2 seconds and looked back at their magazine. That was it. You walk out and peek through the window. Nobody inside is thinking about it anymore. It's gone. Completely gone. So why does this keep happening? Why does your brain feel like it's living under a spotlight all the time? Because your mind replays your embarrassing moments on a loop. Like a tiny theater with one audience member, you. Your brain lives inside your own head. It experiences life entirely from your point of view, and only yours. From your perspective, you feel enormous. Your thoughts fill your whole inner world, and you assume everyone else sees the same thing. Every arrow of your attention points inward at yourself. And so you assume everyone else's attention must be pointing there too. But here's what's actually happening. Everyone is standing under their own spotlight. They're too busy looking up at their own light to look at yours. Psychologists call this egocentric thinking. We naturally default to assuming we are at the center of other people's attention. We're not. You're looking at the world through binoculars pointed backwards. Everything becomes a mirror focused entirely on you. In your imagination, the version of you that others see is huge, dramatic, and spotlight lit. In reality, you're one small, normal figure in a very busy world. It's Tuesday. You're still thinking about the shoe squeak from last Thursday. You've replayed it 100 times in your head. The person who watched you that day? Their thought bubble is full of their own stress, their own schedule, their own lunch plans. You're simply not in there. Your brain is like a theater that puts your most embarrassing moment in the starring role, complete with smoke machines, dramatic lighting, and a full production. Brain, self-focused, small event, feels enormous, assumes others noticed. That's the spotlight effect loop, playing out quietly every single time. You pass a mirror and your whole body tightens. You wonder if anyone behind you sees what you see in that reflection. If you actually calculated the number of people who noticed your stumble today, it would probably be 0, maybe 1, for about 2 seconds. The crowd in your head is enormous. The crowd in reality is barely there. That gap between the two is exactly where the spotlight effect lives. You're holding a magnifying glass to a stain the size of a pinpoint. Nobody else can see it. But to you, it's absolutely all you can see. In your head, a theatrical disaster. In reality, a quiet, completely normal moment that no one stored in memory. Everything you were embarrassed about this week? You can list every single item. But what others actually remember about you? The page is blank. The spotlight is dimming, not because you disappeared, but because you're starting to see it for what it always was, smaller than it felt. Here's the real picture. Every single person you've ever been embarrassed in front of is standing under their own spotlight, worried about their own moment. That person in the audience when you stumbled? They were thinking about a stressful email, a sore knee, and what they wanted for lunch. And someone else in that same room was worried about their own voice crack, their own stumble, their own spotlight. When you really, truly realize this, something shifts. A small, quiet "oh." Everyone is doing this. Everyone. What you think about, mostly yourself. What others think about, mostly themselves. The overlap between those two circles is very, very small. Next time you're on a bus or subway, just look around. Everyone is somewhere else inside their own head. Nobody is narrating your life. People pass you on the street, each one carrying their own weight, their own invisible drama, their own inner monologue. None of it is about you. You could stand completely still on a sidewalk for 10 full seconds and most people would walk around you without a second thought. You are not the main character in everyone else's story. You're a background figure. And that, honestly, is really, really freeing. Everyone is the star of their own movie. In other people's films, you might get 10 seconds of screen time, at absolute most. That embarrassing thing you did? The people who saw it have moved on. Their mental DVR recorded over that footage a long time ago. The mistake you're still holding on to? Everyone else dropped it long ago. You're the only one still carrying it. Feel that? That's your shoulders lowering. That's the weight of an imaginary audience starting to lift. Just a little. When you can laugh at yourself, even just a little, the spotlight loses most of its power, because humor means you've taken back control of the story. This is what it starts to feel like when the spotlight isn't running your life. Just a little more room to breathe. Just a little more space to simply be. But here's the honest truth. Even when we understand the spotlight effect, it can still hold us back. We don't ask the question, we don't take the step, we walk away from the door we were about to open, we put the microphone down, we back away from the thing we were about to try, just in case. We sit with a blank canvas and a hovering pencil, imagining judgment before a single mark has ever been made, and so the canvas stays blank. Not because we can't do it, because we're afraid of being seen trying. We want to join the conversation, but there's an invisible wall between us and them, built entirely from imaginary eyes that aren't even looking at us. We put the bold outfit back on the hanger. We wear the safe one again and again and again. We lower our hand before the teacher even looks our way. We silence ourselves before anyone else gets the chance. We stand outside the party, watching through the window, telling ourselves we're not good at dancing. But really? We're just afraid of the spotlight. We sit alone at the table with our arms crossed, choosing the familiar discomfort of invisibility over the terrifying possibility of being seen. We stare at the record button. We almost press it. But what if nobody watches? What if someone laughs at us? So we don't press it. The screen goes dark. And another small piece of something we could have made quietly disappears. Over time, the fear of judgment quietly shrinks the circle of things we actually do. The things we avoid keep growing larger and larger. And we don't always notice it happening. It's slow. It's quiet. The world gets a little smaller each time we choose to retreat. There are 2 paths ahead of you. One is safe, stay small, never risk judgment, protect yourself from embarrassment. The other, risk being seen. Right now, the spotlight is blazing, and you're frozen at the fork, both feet planted, neither path feels safe. And behind you, the unasked questions, the unrecorded videos, the conversations you never started, the stage you never stepped onto. But ahead of you, a version of yourself who tried things, who stood under the spotlight without running, who created, spoke, danced, asked, and actually lived. The version of you who never risks anything ends up smaller. The version of you who risks being seen ends up with a bigger life. It starts with one step. Just one, not running, not leaping, one small, shaky, honest step forward. So how do you actually start breaking free from the spotlight effect? Step 1. Zoom out. Your embarrassing moment is a tiny pixel in the galaxy of your whole life, and the people around you have galaxies of their own. When something mortifying happens, ask yourself one question. Will this matter tomorrow? Probably not. Okay, will it matter next week? Definitely not. Next year, you might not even remember it. Give yourself that perspective right now, not years from now. Step 2. Remember that everyone has their own spotlight. The attention you're so afraid of, it's pointed inward on them, not outward at you. Practice tiny social risks. Wave at someone. Strike up a small conversation. Watch what happens. Almost always, absolutely nothing bad. Raise your hand. Ask the question you were afraid to ask. Most of the time, it goes fine, and sometimes someone else needed to hear that question too. Trip over a curb. Look around. Notice that nobody noticed. Then laugh, because you get to laugh at your own outtakes. Step 3. Learn to laugh at yourself. Not harshly, not self-mockingly, just lightly, with warmth. The way you'd laugh with a really good friend. You are allowed to be imperfect and still okay. A wrong word, a squeaky shoe, a bad take, and you are still doing just fine. Step 4. Act while nervous. Because action beats paralysis every single time. You don't have to feel brave to be brave. You just have to move. The microphone is right there. You're nervous. Of course you are. Step up anyway. Take the breath, say the thing, press the button, make the video, post the thing you made. One act of creation is worth 1,000 moments of hesitation. Raise your hand. Join the conversation, even when your knees shake. Especially when your knees shake. The spotlight that used to terrify you is still there. But it looks different now. Smaller, more manageable, less like a sentence and more like just light. Here's the truth that changes things. They are not watching you nearly as much as you think they are. Every single person you're afraid of being judged by is standing under their own spotlight, thinking about their own life. You don't have to wait until you feel invisible to live. The spotlight was never the whole story. It was never even most of the story. You are allowed to be seen. You are allowed to try, fail, stumble, create, speak, and show up without waiting for the spotlight to disappear. It never will. But it doesn't have to stop you.